a platypus because sometimes ugly wins, and you never know. You never know if ugly is going to win that day. So I'm going to go with the platypus, and I'm going to bet on the ugly.
Welcome to No Hacks Show, a weekly podcast in which smart people talk to you about better online experiences. Today we're diving into a world where analytics meets creativity, a place where numbers and music harmonize to bring out the best in both worlds. And my guest on that journey is none other than Mr. Analytics Wizard, the analytical Josh Silverbauer, joining me from the future. Welcome to the podcast, Josh. Great to have you on.
Thanks, man. I am super excited to be here.
Me too. Just a chance to talk to you about all the creative stuff you do in the sphere of analytics and, well, everything else. Super pumped for that. So, before we start talking about analytics, there's a question that I ask everyone. You responded on my LinkedIn post. You need to hire an animal for a web analytics role because there's no more humans. Who's your pick and why?
Oh, I'm going to go with the one that I put on the post, which is a platypus, because sometimes ugly wins, and you never know. You never know if ugly is going to win that day. So I'm going to go with the platypus, and I'm going to bet on the ugly.
I love that. Absolutely. Also, a platypus is like a company's landing page or homepage where everybody gets to put something there, and the pieces don't really fit. Yeah. But that's how you please every single department. It's a perfect hire.
And you're trying to go after the bills, right? The bills, right?
Yes.
Big bills.
Exactly. So how did you get into web analytics in the first place? When did that happen? Why did that happen?
So my entire life has been a struggle between my left and right brain. Most of the times my right brain has won. And so like before, I grew up, I loved puzzles, I loved math, but I also really loved music and I loved, creativity. And after, like when I went to school, I went for basically creativity. I went for audio engineering, and came out of the degree with audio engineering, played in a rock and roll band for 6 years after college, doing odd jobs like Elvis impersonations. Literally, I did that for a job, and other weird stuff. But then I met my now wife, and the story goes is, she said, why don't you try something else other than what you're doing right now? So I said, yeah, I should probably do something with my life. So I went to relearn the stuff that I learned in college, which was, audio engineering. And I went and I joined an Apple and Adobe training center as a marketing intern. I had to use their Salesforce. Their Salesforce was terrible. And so I started to fix their Salesforce and realized that I kind of liked software, engineering in a way, kind of figuring out how to make CRMs better. And I started with CRM. But I quickly got into the Google suite there. They had a gap in their marketing as well. And so I learned AdWords. I taught myself that. And then I learned Google Analytics as a support system to AdWords. And then I fell in love with Google Analytics, Google Tag Manager. And then I just started, leaning into Tag Manager more and more and analytics more and more because it really stroked the puzzle in my brain, right? And I love that side of things. And it was really, truly a puzzle again. I just started growing and growing and growing. And I kind of gave up the right side of my brain for a while. And then this past couple of years, I really fused the two. And that's what's made kind of me the most happy right now. So
that's awesome for you. And no one did it better. No one combined analytics and music, web analytics to be specific, and music better than you did. I don't know if many people tried to, but no one did it better.
Let them try.
Let them try, exactly. So currently you are a web analytics consultant, wizard, whatever you want to call it, at From the Future agency. Mm-hmm. And, I did a lot of web analytics in the past. And when GA4 happened, this is kind of when I started doing other things. And I said, look, I'm getting off on this stop. You're not going to continue with me. I'm not interested in GA4. I should be. I should learn more about it, of course. But what's the status of web analytics in 2024?
I think there's a lot of uncertainty, confusion, for better or for worse, like Universal Analytics was just a very accessible platform for a lot of people, right? It really made people incredibly passionate about, I can learn analytics, whether they really truly understood it or not. It gave them a really simple interface that was complicated enough that there was a big range. But with GA4, you really need to have a specialist who is able to, one, be almost like a full-time job around GA4. And that isolated a lot of people who were in marketing who feel kind of, like one, angry, one, not passionate, one, another just really in fear of like where they're going to get their data. So there's, and then there's other platforms that are popping up, but Google is so big with, search and everything that they feel they need GA4 still, right? And so there's just this really, discomfort around web analytics. And we're going to see that grow as, third-party cookies are deprecated from Chrome and different, AI becomes more of a source of getting information. There's just going to be this general kind of bubbling dis-ease with where things are going. So that's where it is right now.
And when you said Universal Analytics, you said for better or worse, it was a popular product. What's for worse part of that statement?
Well, I think, being kind of, in this space for 10 years, the famous line that I would always hear is, I know enough to be dangerous, right? That's what everybody would say, right? I know enough to be dangerous. And they didn't really know enough. And they did know enough to be dangerous because, ultimately they, people thought that they could really power use a system without having kind of a real, true basis in understanding analytics, et cetera. Right. And, that, I would always lean on make things accessible regardless. Right. Like just give people tools to use technology and let them learn and see who fits with it. Right. And so even though, people didn't have a strong background in data science and data analytics, right, being able to use a platform, to help them is better than not being able to use any platform to help them. Right. So I think that, in my personal opinion, even just having a system that is accessible is better than not. And GA4 is so not accessible that, it puts a lot of people out.
Very well said. Also, UA for a lot of people, if we're being honest, was a glorified stat counter and nothing more than that. I want to see the number of sessions. I want to see the number of users, who goes to my landing page, what's the drop, a bounce rate in some cases. Yeah. And like that's the end. That's enough to be dangerous, right?
It's amazing how they just couldn't get that right in GA4, right? Yeah. But it's getting there. We'll say
it's getting there. Yep. And you still get that banner at the top in GA4 that says like your Universal is not processing data. Yeah. Blah blah blah. Like it's been there for 2 years now almost. It's time for that to go, if you ask me. Yeah. So GA4 obviously is there's the brand, the Google brand behind it. It's the big player. What are the other options for someone who just says, I don't want to deal with this. This is too complicated. I want my UA back. Yeah. What are the options for that kind of person?
A very, if people miss kind of the feel and some of the ways that Google Analytics or Universal Analytics kind of laid itself out, PayWave Pro is a really good alternative for that because it's, similar in terms of the way that it was, kind of built and laid out. So it makes it feel like the way that I kind of explain it is like if Universal Analytics was to have a 2.0 and it wasn't GA4, it would be PayWave Pro because it really, they went kind of that direction and there's, some really valuable stuff you can get from it. But there's all these other platforms that are, popping up as well that serve different needs. Like Microsoft Clarity is really taking on a lot of the visual interpretations of how, people are using your website. They focus more on heat maps and session replay, but there's going to be more like, funnels and other things that are going to be coming out soon within, Microsoft Clarity. There are, like other systems like Twik, there's a ton that kind of came out during this time And then there's all of the kind of like more broader, like integrated CDP systems like Segment and stuff that if like are truly like first party data first, product analysis, mixed panel product stuff, right? So there's a lot out there right now.
And it's more confusing than it was 3 years ago with universal just being the default option for most. I mean, of course, if you have a brand, if you know exactly what you're looking for, it's easy to select a tool. But if you just create an e-commerce website or a small website, universal analytics was your default option. Like for everyone, it was a default option. Now, I don't think it exists. Like that I mean, GA4.
I had a great analogy for this, which is the Game of Thrones. It is the Game of Thrones analogy, right? And this will be quick, but basically, Universal Analytics was the Robert Baratheon. He was the king, right? And then he died. And now everybody is trying to get to the throne. And we have Joffrey, who is like the, GA4 that nobody likes and is just like, oh, I guess we have to accept this because he's the son. But everybody else is like, there's a ton of other platforms who are going to the throne and no one really knows how it's going to pan out. So we'll have to see.
Who's the dragon in this analogy?
AI.
Okay,
probably. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's the thing that's going to destroy everything. We'll see.
Hopefully not everything, but that's a good point. So speaking of AI, of course it's a big thing in web analytics. I don't think it's as big as it's going to be even in 6 months from now. Like it's going to take over completely, help with analysis. Today, and we're recording this, it's April 2024. What are the practical applications of AI in any of these Google web analytics, not Google?
Yeah, web analytics. Yeah, sure. So it's interesting because like different platforms have different applications of AI depending on the resources that they have, right? And we see some of them popping up just like literally last week. Another one popped up in BigQuery, and that one is, I categorize them into like 5 different buckets. There's like the helpers, right? And the helpers are, we'll complete a task for you so that you can do this faster, right? So like the BigQuery one that just popped up is, we'll help you write SQL if you, in plain language, just say what you want, right? So you don't have to write SQL, right? So there's the helpers in there, right? And they're just going to help the product kind of get you to the product. Then there is the explainers, the insights, right? So it's /summarizers, right? So it's like taking a lot of the data and summarizing, what has happened so you don't have to, stay there and, kind of analyze it yourself. And you see this in something like Clarity, where you can, basically take a heat map and say, tell me exactly what happened on this page, right? What are the, where are people clicking? Where are they not clicking? Where are they having friction? Or it can, basically gather up a whole bunch of sessions and say, okay, you tell me what those sessions did. And so I don't have to watch all of these myself. So they're summarizing.
Is it good at that?
Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah, it's definitely the best that I've seen when it comes to that. And it there's definitely room for improvement. And it's AI, right? So there's always room for improvement, but it is like the best version of what I've seen that application do. And so, and then on the GA side, like, it's providing insights based off of trends, but like, I don't find those super duper valuable to me, like the summarized insights. Then there's like the attribution side and modeling side, right? Which is kind of, taking all of the information and the data and allocating out, what should get credit based off of activity that it sees on the site, right? And so, as opposed like the data-driven essentially model, right? So it's like, 3 different sessions happened, and then a varying amounts of activity happened. Let's allocate credit based off of, automatically based off of what people did during that. So it's taking the data, understanding the data, and then making decisions based off of what should get credit based off of that data. And then there's predictive analytics, which is basically like taking all of that data and saying, okay, what will happen or what will potentially happen with people who are similar to, based off of the previous data we see. Somebody took an activity, so let's predict that they will take another activity down the road. So that's another bucket. And then the final bucket, which we're not seeing too much today, but we will, is the chat one, which is literally taking data that's happening, and you literally have kind of an employee at your, like, to kind of say, okay, I'm on my website. What's happening? Where are people, actually falling off? Right. And like that interaction element of like actually chatting with your data, you can kind of get there if you like export your data and put it into something like, ChatGPT or something. But like there's not a platform right now that's really good at, from my knowledge, at that chat interaction with your actual data, that lives in a marketing analytics space. So we'll see that.
And we talked about conversational interfaces off the record. I'm a firm believer that this is how we will interact with machines in a few years, if not sooner, because ChatGPT is teaching us to do that. Google will start teaching the whole world to do that same thing with SGE. I think the way we interact with machines is going to change. It's going to be more conversational and less like click, scroll, and find what you're trying to find with your eyes.
Yep.
We'll see about that. But I think it might happen. So what for you would be an ideal AI tool for web analysts or AI application? Is it that chat application or something else?
So that's definitely one of them. I see a future where, so much of this stuff is automated from, an analytics and CRO and different, aspects. It's learning about the data, it's understanding the data, it's optimizing the website, it's deciding what changes should be made. And then you're having a conversation with it. It's essentially an employee of yours that you can go to your website. I in my mind, the analytics of the future lives in an interaction on a website, right? You're on your own website. You have a chat bot essentially there. And you're saying, tell me about the friction points. Okay. What's the data that supports that? Right. You have you say, I'm on my checkout right now. I'm on my checkout because you're, a very smart chatbot that's smarter than me. And I'm trying to understand what could be better here. And then it's essentially taking all of that data that it's processing and giving you suggestions. And then it says, do you want me to make those changes? Right. And you can, because it's automated and they can do it. And they understand your website so well because they've learned through all the data that it's processed.
That's a dream. Like that's basically, it's a nightmare for us optimizing websites, but it's also a dream for having an optimized website, because if a machine can understand, implement, like fix itself, that will happen eventually, of course, but it sounds very appealing. It sounds super, super interesting.
It's going to be great. A lot of jobs are going to change. I truly feel though that smart people will figure out how to be smart and successful regardless of the change. And until there is no jobs left and we're working for AI, that's how it works.
Okay. It's 2024. Give me like over under if that will happen in like 2037, let's say.
Was that,
that's
13 years
from now.
If we're working for AI, I would say I would place some bets that the world is going to be very, very different then. I'm not, I won't lean into any type of,
to go back to UA for better or worse.
I'm an optimistic person, my friend. I don't want to go dark.
I know. But yeah, we will work for AI. Be paid by AI. Maybe that's a better way, because universal basic income is like a thing that people talk about. If AI doesn't give us universal basic income, it will never happen.
Yeah.
It will never, ever happen. And I have a feeling that some rich people will find a way to make it not happen, but let's see about that.
Yeah.
Okay. Enough of the scary thoughts, enough of the 2037 world going to hell, whatever. let's talk about the creative side of analytics or creative side of office jobs. Let's call them that, consultant jobs. You mentioned that in the intro. You were pushed away from your creative side. Yeah, like when your girlfriend told you need to do something other than this, basically.
Yeah.
And then you found your way with, among other things, your YouTube channel called Analytical, writing music, all kinds of super interesting things that I find super interesting. So how does that help you stay motivated to do your job that's not the creative? So let's say there's creative and there's quote unquote boring stuff about work. How does doing creative things motivate you to do the boring things?
I mean, so on the one side, I would not in my brain call analytics job boring. However, it did not feel complete to me, right? I felt like one side of me, and there's this really powerful side of me that really wants to create and be artistic and, constant output of music and video and just all sorts of really fun content. And I couldn't figure out how to do that when I owned my own agency. I just really couldn't figure out how to do that. And I thought I had to be super serious. It'll be all business. Right. And, when I left, I had a friend of mine who's a brand consultant was like, basically like, I was talking to him and I was talking about kind of the struggles that I had. And he was like, who wouldn't want to work with the singing and dancing analytics guy? And I was like, yeah, you're right. And so, I really just started leaning in, and it kind of happened a little bit by accident. I put out that Universal Sunset song. That was the first like really thing that I did, and it got good reception. And then I was like, you know what? I want to just keep building. I want to include the community because I really wasn't part of the community at all. I didn't even know there was a community, but I knew that I had learned from people and I wanted to include those people in my projects. And so I reached out to Simo Ahava and said, do you want to be on this album? And thank God he said yes. And that's just a testament to him and how amazing he is as just a mentor to the community. But he said yes. And that really gave me the confidence to start reaching out to other smart people and say, hey, do you want to be a part of this project? And then I thrusted myself into the community. And that's where I am right now. I'm like deep in the community, which is awesome.
It's a great feeling. For me, that entrance, the thing that got me into the community was this podcast, especially because I didn't know there was a community, just like you. I had no idea there were people who just wanted to hang out and not talk about work. Also, since you mentioned Simo Ahava, shout out Simo Ahava, one of the greatest people in this community. I have an email that I sent to him, I think in 2014, when he was just getting started with his blog, the legendary Simo Ahava blog. I asked some stupid questions about Google Tag Manager. I got a response like very, very long and very detailed. And he didn't even need to read that, but he responded in detail and he really helped me at that point. So there are a lot of people like that in this community, but Simo is definitely one of the best ones.
Yeah.
Speaking of Simo and Juliana Jackson, like, tell me what you did for their podcast because I love what you did for them.
Yeah. So, I reached out to Juliana and I said, hey, you guys need a theme song? I like one part of my strategy with all of this creative stuff is to do what can I give back to the community? And how can, these people who have given me so much, I can't, I'm like, Simo Ahava is like 20 times smarter than me. So I can't like give him like my, left side of my brain, but I can give him my right side of the brain and I can create, music and I can create all this stuff that, that I can, really lend my talents to. And I said, hey, you guys need a theme song. And so, me and Jason Packer wrote the book on GA4 alternatives. I reached out to him a long time ago to get involved with the album. We became kind of a partner in how we're putting out this content. And so I said, hey, Jason, you want to work with me on like these theme songs? he said yes. He wrote the theme to it, and then I kind of, produced it, and we built this thing, and then sent it out, and they liked it, and started building more. Like for
and
you,
what that led to, yes, is to creation of the mega hit. Like we had Flowers in 2023 as Song of the Year. 2024 is going to be No Hacks Invited to the Party. I guarantee you this. I have a feeling this is going to be the Song of the Year. Because the theme song that you heard in the intro and we'll hear the outro of this episode, it was written by Josh and David. It's just, I mean, the way it was made just blew my mind because it was, hey, you need a theme song. Basically, that's exactly what you said about the Standard Deviation podcast. And I think this was, well, not the first version, but it clicked immediately. Like the first version was great. The vibe, and a British friend told me it's Only Fools and Horses vibe. If you ever watched that TV show, that's exactly what it is. I loved it. It is absolutely amazing. So now you did one for the Measure Up podcast, if I'm not wrong, right?
Measure Up podcast, yep. And Jim, him and Simon lead up that podcast. Jim was on the album with me.
Okay.
So like all these people, like, it's kind of like scratching back type things, right? Like, it's really like I'm giving, they're giving. It's all just community. We're all helping each other. We're all trying to get, each other up and out there. So, it really just feels like we're all just giving back,
That's very, very well said. So for the end, final question, where can people see you? Are there any conferences you'll be at? Like where can people find you online? What's the best way to reach out to you?
So, I'm going to Measure Camp. So I'm coming up and I'm doing a couple of, presentations there, and that's, April 13th.
Okay.
I'm very, very present on LinkedIn. So you can look up Josh Silverbauer or J Silverbauer, the / before it. I have a YouTube channel called Analytical, which you can, I put out some really fun music stuff there. And then, I'll be going to the Marketing Analytics Summit, and I might do a surprise there, but I can't talk about it. So
when is that?
That's in June. That's the first week of June. Yeah, that
is awesome. Hey, all I can say is thank you for the song that people will hear in about 30 seconds or 1 minute in the outro, the instrumental version, or the, as I called it when I talked to you, the cruise ship disco banger, because that's exactly what it is without the words. And I can only thank you. This was a great experience. I feel lucky that I ran into you on LinkedIn, and that's the power of community there, because there's a lot of people who are in the same boat as you are, who want to do the same thing, and just reach out, do something for others. They'll do something for you. That's just how it works. And to everyone listening to this episode, I'm sure you learned about why you should not only use GA4 and what are the other options, how you can use AI in your web analytics work, and why staying working creative will keep you motivated to do your job. And I thank you, and I hope you can rate, review, and share this episode, and I will talk to you next week.